Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Divine Data. Today I am sat with Aura. How are you today, love?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to flow.
Yes, I'm so excited to have met you through social media. Like, I love what the pandemic has offered to the planet is essentially this new way to like connect all of the nodes on the planet, all of the people here who are in the same vibration and doing the same kind of work, and offering it to their own personal audiences. And we've found a way to connect even more during a time where we've been like asked to separate even more, which is super cool.
It's everything. I swear the pandemic has, I think it's changed a lot of our lives. And I had my spiritual awakening a year and a half ago. And what's crazy is that when I was with everyone and I was in the swing of life and stuff, I wasn't talking about my spirituality because everyone I was around wasn't spiritual. So the fact that we're all hermits now and sitting at home, we can go online and find our people. That's how TikTok was created. That's how I started becoming so spiritually open, is because I realized, oh my God, I'm not the only one here. I can speak my truth. And it was so beautiful. It was like, it expanded me emotionally and spiritually. I'm so happy. Like the pandemic is a blessing in disguise.
In disguise. And there's, of course, there's a lot of like heaviness to be held around it and reverence to pay to that. But I keep hearing, in my own mind's eye and seeing in my own mind's eye that it's with destruction comes great creation.
Yeah.
And there has been so much creation and there is so much opportunity still and so much to look forward to if you're doing the inner work and if you're willing to take this time right now. Which is devastating for most people. But if you stay in that narrative of devastation, of course, you're not going to see any up leveling, any upgrading from this. But what I'm seeing is like we were asked basically to go inside our homes, but we're really being asked to go inside. And that's so integral and so important because all of the distractions have been ripped away. There's no more of that. We get to find out who we truly are. And to start this off, we introduced you as Aura, right? And we were talking right before we recorded. And I'd love for you to explain to a little bit about how Aura Vibin came about. And if you guys want to find her on socials, that's her handle, but we'll keep all of the links in the description as well. But I'd love to hear the story behind that name.
Yeah, actually, okay, so if you're on the spiritual journey, you know that spiritual awakenings happen probably through trauma. If not, then that's amazing that you like got on the spiritual path because you were curious. But I got on the spiritual path because of trauma after trauma after trauma, and I just couldn't heal anymore. I didn't know how to heal. So it was like either I take my own life or I figure out what life is about. And so I was like, no, I commit to figuring out what the heck I'm here for. Like, I want answers. And what's crazy, and I'm getting tingles, the minute that you want answers, the minute that you search deeply for answers, you're blessed with this mystical advice. You're blessed with mystical experiences and occurrences. So when this started happening and I was like, okay, I commit to living, I literally had an angel, like a huge orb. Okay, so I'll tell you the story. I prayed to my spirit guides. I had nothing left, and I prayed to my spirit guides, and I was like, tell me why I'm talking to people and it's like they can't see me. Tell me why I'm talking to people and they can't hear my soul. It's like I'm talking to a physical flesh. Like, I need answers. Why am I here, spirit guides? I want to heal people, but they don't even want me to heal them. Like, what am I here for? It was literally a plea. It was a cry to them, like, hear me, hear my cry. And that night, I think this was about 10 p.m. when I made that prayer out loud to the wall, literally. That night at like 3 a.m., I had an orb come down and show me in the physical form that this life is much more than the physical. And that was, I think what's crazy is when you ask a question, your spirit guides know exactly what you need to hear to keep going. And had they not come down in the physical, I wouldn't have believed it. Had it been like a little message in my mind, I would have been like, that's not good enough. That's me talking. I needed something substantial. I needed something to hold, to prove to me that this life was more magical than what I was like living day to day. So when I saw that orb, it was like being touched by an angel. I was covered in ecstasy. Like, and I've taken ecstasy before, like way in the past. And I know what ecstasy feels like. This was covered in ecstasy times 25. And I was like, holy crap. Okay. From there, my life completely changed. So I've been on a path to like, sorry about that. I've been on a path to healing myself and healing humanity. But that's when I realized, okay, this life is mystical. I'm a mystic. I love this. This gives me meaning. This gives me it showed me that I was a soul, an immortal soul that lived forever. Because if that orb could float down and answer my prayers, I am immortal. I am not just my physical flesh. And that's what I needed to hear in that moment. So that's how Aura was created. Because then I found out about auras. Then I found out about energy. Then I found out about vibration. And I was like, this world is crazy. So I named myself Aura. I named myself Aura. Yeah. That's how that came to be.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a really beautiful story. So you're basically saying you were just one of the people who thought all of spirituality was woo-woo at some point before
I didn't even hear it. That's what's crazy. I didn't hear it. I was like, that doesn't affect me. I don't understand it. I care nothing for it. And like I was raised Christian, so spirituality to me was kind of like religion. It was like, oh, this culty way of looking at life, like you have to do certain things, when in reality spirituality is your own experience. You make of it whatever you connect to your own soul. That's what spirituality is. It's evolving your soul. So I was like, oh my God, I'm a soul. Before that, I was this person. I was like the flesh. I was looking in the mirror and I was like, what is this? What am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even hear it before that experience.
Yeah, and it's also, I want to say for like the listeners and people who may be viewing it as well, it is important to have that tether though, both to the spiritual and the physical, because we're here in this flesh for a reason. And what I keep getting responded to when I speak about like, you are not your body, is like, but if you're not your body, then why do I have to like pay bills and pay rent and do this? And if I'm like, if you're not your body, the worst thing I've ever heard was, if you're not your body, then jump in front of a bus and see what happens. And I'm like, baby, like, that's not what we're saying. We're saying like the soul that is like encompassed by this physical is the immortal bit. So I just want to like, I'm totally love your story and yes to everything you're saying. I just love to like preface that, because there are people who will listen to this and they want to initially just like attack it, especially because if they can't hear it for what it is, then it does sound like a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo to them. And, you know, I love that you said you couldn't even hear it, because there is just like a certain experience in the human experience that we have where we get conditioned into the belief systems that like we are this physical and that the 9 to 5 is what the life is and the white picket fence and that's it. You work, pay bills, you die. And yes, there is an essence of that. Yes, I still have to pay bills. Yes, I still have to work for money. But I'm also seeing that we are moving into a space and time as this paradigm shifts, as paradigms have always been shifting, as we've always been evolving, that we are actually working with energies a lot more. And I've been talking with a few people about how like energy and telepathy are going to be the biggest forms of like communication and currency that human beings are going to eventually understand that they've been working with. Even like the money form that we know in the fiat and dollar form, even in like the Bitcoin and blockchain technology forms, are also just a representation of energy, because it is this tangible thing that we can see and we can feel and we can hold and we can collect and gather. But if we can understand where that concept came from, it's all energy, right? So it's super interesting because, you know, I have, my father will always say, for example, like, oh, I'm just more old school than what you're thinking. And I'm like, you're more old school than like esoteric beliefs from the beginning of time. Like,
Exactly. And to go on what you were saying about the physical form, we are here to have this physical experience. If we're immortal, let's say our soul can go anywhere to higher realms. It can be an angel, it can be a deity, whatever it can be, okay? And we decide when we're in those higher realms to guide humans, but we have not had a human experience, then we don't know how to guide through pain. through heartbreak, through cutting our finger, through like these, like your heart hurts because you lost someone. Like we have to experience these forms of suffering, but also the joys of being human, like the ecstasy of winning, like something, winning on a lottery ticket, like $2, whatever it might be. Like being human is beautiful, and it's part of the evolution of our soul, right? So, and also I talk to people a lot about this concept of we cannot be telepathic. We cannot hone in on our spiritual gifts if we have not mastered the human, right? If we are struggling with our, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the foundation, if we are struggling with our basic needs, whether that be like water, food, whether that be like comfort, security, safety, we cannot reach self-actualization. And that is so, so real. Think about how you have everything on that pyramid, and all that you're thinking about is, oh, how can I better myself? And then it becomes like a trap of like, oh, I want to better myself. I want to better myself. But bettering yourself is a gift. It's a gift to better yourself, because look at people across the world whose sole mission is to travel 2 kilometers to get water and then come back. And that is their mission. They are accomplishing, they are succeeding in life. So it's important to have perspective also on privilege and how being human is a gift wherever you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep going. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I love that, because that is something I am also met with a lot. It's like, well, what about poverty? What about suffering? What about this? What about that? And it's like, honestly, as hard as this is to hear, everybody is playing a specific role on this planet in this lifetime, and there's going to be a lot of people in this lifetime that we will meet that it is not their life's purpose this lifetime to have a spiritual awakening, to be awoke to this. There's not their path to be rich or successful. Perhaps in their past lives, they've been in their past lives, excuse me, I said lives. In their past lives, they were kings and queens. How are we to know that? And perhaps they're also like completing a karmic cycle. Maybe they've done something really horrible in another life, and they have to live a life where they are in more suffering in this lifetime. And that's also another difficult thing, and it is something that, that's why speaking about spirituality can become difficult when you're not speaking with people who are on that path, who are understanding this stuff. Now, I assume that the people who come and find my channel or they find your socials are people who are seeking this. They are meant to be finding this. There are going to be people who run into it who are just there to combat it. Maybe it's their purpose. Oh, yeah. Even just like download some information. They don't even realize that they're receiving codes. Yes. And they're getting seeds planted into their subconscious mind, whether it's for this lifetime or another. It's so interesting to see that different array. And to be able to recognize that and have acceptance for that is one of the parts of this human experience as well. Because especially because we live in such a polarized world, when we're meant to be living this like non-dualistic life where like lightness and dark, they are equal. They're both so important to have and to hold, but they're meant to be integrated. They're meant to become like friends with each other in a way. We're meant to like learn from all of it. They're not meant to be on these like opposite ends of the spectrum where like they never meet each other and we have to like banish one from to the outskirts of society or humanity or what have you. Yeah. And that's the other issue too, is I'm seeing a lot of people on the internet and in the spiritual realms, whether they have an internet presence or not, that get sucked into this toxic positivity. And I think I've heard you talk about that a couple of times. I think you mentioned it once on one of the Paradigm Shifters podcasts that we were on together. Yeah. So I was wondering what you think about that, because this show is all about like authentic leadership. We are here to inspire change by speaking and embodying our highest truths. And that means like sharing your story of darkness, your dark night of the soul that brought you into this part of your awakening. Yeah. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
So I think if you're asking about toxic positivity, that's such an interesting topic, because on the one hand, you have toxic positivity, and on the other hand, you have playing the victim. So I think people use positivity to avoid being the victim. All right, let's explain toxic positivity. To me, this is masking your feelings to avoid looking at the shadow and avoid real pain. When you meet real pain, when you meet your shadow, you actually heal it, and that positivity becomes authentic because you have nothing to hide. The toxic positivity happens when you are hiding something and masking it and pretending it's not there, but still staying positive. It's like that form of positivity is not leadership, it's avoidance, and it comes from a place of fear. And that vibration, that's what you're holding that vibration of fear when you're being positive out of obligation, or positive because it's the right thing to do, or it is what it is. I hate that quote so much. No, it is what you make it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is what you make it. So, and then there's also, though, on the opposite end, being the victim. And okay, at a certain point, like, life sucks. If you can't meet your shadow, because let's be honest, some people are not in the frame of mind to get to their darkness, or else it would be a snowball to their death, to their like taking their lives or whatever. So it's like there's a certain level of positivity that you have to get you to the next level of like lifting yourself up. So it could be looked at as toxic positivity because they're not at the emotional state to meet their shadow. So it's like, okay, they have to do what they have to do to get themselves out of bed in the morning. They have to do what they have to do to eat that meal. And whether that be like little things like, you got this, it's okay, you got this. Like, you're not ready to look at your shadow yet, but keep going, you got this. So it depends on where the person's soul is at and
Mm-hmm.
how much they're able to look at their darkness, to heal that toxic positivity, and how much they actually just need to wake up out of bed. It's weird. It's a weird like
Yeah.
balance.
Totally. And I see that. And one of the things that I tell some of my clients, because I do life coaching, is if I feel that they're at the point that they're ready to move from their victim narrative, but they are just so stuck in it because can become alluring and it's almost like intoxicating and addictive to like be in that woe is me mindset. I've been there, trust me, I get it. I'm speaking from experience. But like what I had to do one day is literally wake up and say, I'm tired of my own bullshit. Oh my God, I am so tired of my own motherfucking bullshit. And I'm going to make a difference today. And that doesn't mean that like I woke up and was like sunshine and rainbows and butterflies. No, it was like, I'm going to get up and I'm going to start doing something, at least one thing every day to improve my existence here on the planet, to figure out why I'm here, why I'm experiencing this, why it's happening for me, not to me, because everything is really happening for us. And also we are, co-creating with the universe, whatever our experiences and our realities are. I know that when I started my like TikTok journey, I had so much resistance to it. And I was, my shadow of like 16-year-old me came through. I'm 28 now, but like I started this at 28 years old, and I felt my 16-year-old shadow come out and be like, look at all these little kids and they have so many followers and I'm never gonna, and it's of course I'm not gonna grow on it. Of course, because I'm literally not even being willing to see like, oh, I'm happy for these people and their representation. Because if we're all one, if I believe in this oneness, which I'd been speaking of and like traveling the world teaching that, and yet somehow still, because I think we're like constantly healing, even if you do heal that toxic positivity side, even if you do meet your shadows, there's
Oh,
still
yeah.
just more to be learned and more to be had and more awakenings to be had as well.
Yeah.
um, and having that a moment, was really, really beautiful to be able to be like, oh my gosh, I should be happy for these people because they're a reflection of what I am.
And
And
not
that's
just what you are, but what is possible.
what is
You
possible.
know, I had that same shadow experience. I was like, Charlie D'Amelio. She was a huge, like, do you know who she is? She's like the top creator on the app. And I was like, how is she like so advanced and she's 15 or something? But she was such an inspiration to me. I was like, I want to dance. I literally looked at all of her dancing videos and started dancing because of her. So it's like they're a reflection of what you're capable of too, and being a child again. So I love that.
Exactly. And that, so they say some of the most spiritual beings are children, and to be very spiritual yourself is to have that essence of a child as well.
Mhm.
Obviously we, don't want to be sucking our thumbs and screaming mommy daddy, but we want to be able to have that joy. I remember being at the beach like a week ago, and I was having so much fun, literally splashing the ocean by myself, completely by myself. And I didn't realize that there was this dude like eating on the beach, just watching the entire time. And it wasn't in a creepy way. He was just kind of like in awe though. And I came out and I was like fluttering around and finally noticed that he was looking my way. And I was like, you just got to be like free spirited, like a child. And he was like, you do it really well. And he came over, and even during like this weird times of the pandemic, he like washed his hands right in front of me with Purell, and he pulled out like his bag of Mexican food. He was like, I bought way too much food, and here are some like wrapped tacos and some chips. And like it was crazy because I had been thinking about tacos that day. And because I was just in alignment and I was having fun and I inspired that in someone else, I was then gifted these tacos. And I was like,
you attracted that.
yeah. And I was like, this is amazing. And I even with all of the experiences that I've had, having had like my first spiritual awakening many years ago, probably 5 years ago at this point, my real spiritual awakening I want to get into that in a second as well.
Yes.
But like the one that I was cognizant of, the like real like first dark night of my soul that I got through. I just remember like every single time something that this happens, this alignment happens, and I track that and I pull in these gifts and this abundance, I'm still wowed by it every single time. And I find myself saying things like, that's crazy. That's crazy. But it's not that crazy, it is how we've been operating on this planet in our entire lives, right? Like everyone thinks they need to learn how to manifest. And I'm like, baby, you've already known. You've been manifesting your whole life. You've just probably been manifesting not everything you wanted because you focus on the wrong things. You like where attention goes, energy flows. So when you learn about that, you realize, oh my gosh, I am a master manifester. I've just been manifesting not the best stuff. But I've brought up to my own self the idea of a spiritual awakening. And you said to me you had your spiritual awakening a year and a half ago. Yeah. I don't believe that anyone on this planet just has one spiritual awakening and it's done.
Not.
I also would like to challenge my own self by saying I had mine 5 years ago, because when I look back at my cosmic map that has led me to where I am today, this shit started when I was like born into the universe, born into the planet, like the first day. And it's becoming cognizantly aware of it, of course. And like, I think one of my most empowering awakenings that I've had also happened about a year and a half, maybe a bit more. I need to remath it. It was like April 29th of 2019. My ex-fiance left me and I lost my mind. Like I was already experiencing PTSD from certain experiences we had in our relationship. And then I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to take my life. And I ended up, being really, really lucky and having a support system that was not willing to allow me to go, because I've already done so much work and I'm already like awesome. I'm well loved. I'm all of the things, there's no reason for me to go anywhere. But if there wasn't my support system, so thank you to everyone who is there, I would be gone. And I actually went in for ketamine transfusions, which is like super like taboo for a lot of people because it's like a psychedelic, but it is something that is changing people's lives and saving people's lives on a daily basis. And I can be, a proponent and a testament to that. And while I was in one of my infusions, I was literally brought to the Galactic Council. And I was sitting there and I was just like, I'm supposed to be in a doctor's office right now, but I am like somewhere else. I'm in the astral plane. I don't know what's happening. I am not meditating. This is not intentional. This is not me like bringing myself there because I've, done the astral travel at this point. I've done this work in these realms. I was like, I'm literally being brought here intentionally. And they were like, this is your work. This is what you have to do. It was this whole long 45-minute experience in there. I had my like ex-fiance was there. I had like teachers that I knew from growing up that weren't even like spiritual guides. I had actual spiritual guides from different schools I'd worked with. All of them were like there chilling. And then it was like these beings, this like galactic council sitting in this, and everyone who like is not on the spiritual path will totally say like, you're having like a schizophrenic or a psychedelic moment. This isn't real, all of that stuff. And I'm like, no, babies, like, this is real. This is what brought me back to my purpose and my remembrance of who I am and why I started.
But not just that, just quickly, not to write off those experiences of psychedelic experiences or schizophrenia. Like those are human experiences for a reason. Not to be like, write them off and be like, oh, she's crazy. No. But why do we have the experience of being crazy, being schizophrenic? What is schizophrenia? So just wanted to put that in.
I really agree with what you're saying there, because I've also been to a couple talks in my life where these spiritual leaders will say that schizophrenia is in fact like people who are mediums or channels who are connected to too many channels, and they don't know how to clearly channel and the downloads that they're receiving. So they're basically getting all of this divine information, and it comes out pretty like jumbled. And so that is a difficult thing. And that's a whole other episode probably, is to get into all of the psychiatric disorders that humans are just medicated for, and basically turned into numb robots rather than the beings that they're meant to be. We were meant to learn how to help those people like ground themselves and learn to channel properly. But that me is saying like, oh, it's just a psychedelic or a schizophrenic experience is literally what I've been told. And because it is shamed. That way of thinking, that way of channeling is shamed, because that's what, you know, the malevolent like beings on this planet that want to keep people down, and they don't want to let people expand and grow.
Unfortunately, it is nefarious. I'm just gonna say that. Like, why do you think there are no spiritual doctors, and all the spiritual doctors or the witch doctors get axed or murdered because they have like the freaking antidote to cancer? Why do you think they're not allowed Bibles in like psych wards and stuff like that? It's insane. It's a spiritual war. Big pharma does not have our best interest at heart. And I'm not trying to say that to like fearmonger or scare anyone, but just to awaken that we are born into a system that we have not agreed to. And it's our duty to navigate our own path out of that, find truths on our own, because the seeker is the one who finds truth. Truth will be taught to you in bits and pieces from everyone that you encounter, even non-spiritual people. They will give you a divine piece of information and you're going to be like, that wasn't you talking. That was my guides talking through you, but you weren't even aware of that. The seeker will get information everywhere and find their own path. So it's unfortunate when people are medicated away from their truth. That's all.
Absolutely. When I was a kid, I actually asked my parents to send me away. I was probably 16, to go to like a mental hospital because I was so depressed, and none of the therapists they were sending to me were helping, or sending me to rather, were helping. None of the things that they were doing or trying to help me through were helping whatsoever. And when I got there, all the doctors wanted to do was medicate me. And I didn't realize that that was what was going to happen. I thought that, like, going to see like these doctors was to go get me help. And it isn't. You're just becoming guinea pigs for big pharma. And they wanted to keep me there for like long overdue than I should have been there. They wanted to keep me there 3 months. I stayed 3 weeks. That was probably way too long anyways. And I started to like refuse my medication because I was like, I don't need to be medicated. And I saw some really brilliant people. I was always like super tuned into energy. Really beautiful people who were just numb, like completely numb, because they were being put on like tranquilizers and stuff. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of Seroquel, but like they were getting put on like high dose of Seroquel. And I was like, that is literally a tranquilizer. When I left there, I started to like Google all of this stuff. And immediately I was like, I am not going to stay on these medications, because they like sent me home. They wanted me to be on like a plethora of different medications. They didn't want me to like expand my mind's eye. They just wanted me to like keep feeding into this like disgusting cycle that is created by big pharma. And it is really scary because, like, you know, even saying stuff like this, like, I don't want to ever stop myself or censor myself, but I do know that it puts me in a dangerous spot for like these platforms, because then they do sometimes like completely chop you down, or they'll completely shadow ban you or whatever if you decide to speak the truth to this stuff.
Yeah, and not just that, it's interesting that you say like you would be censored, but like we were talking about before, whenever you start to speak certain truths, universal truths that are understood among spiritual people, other people tune out. So you could also be losing your audience, like if you have an audience that's non-spiritual, because they would hear this and be like, oh, they're crazy, or oh, they fell for it. But when it comes down to like, this is our path, we're walking the path, we know these truths to be true. And like, if you were to walk your own path, you would find the same truths. So it's not that we're all like in an echo chamber, but rather noticing that we are in a spiritual war.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. And that's been something that's been on my mind lately, is like, I'd rather lose the followers than I'd rather lose the people who are not willing to hear it, because like at this point in my journey, I've like dropped all of the desire to like fight to wake people up. And I've dropped all the desire to actually fight the systems. I just want to create the systems that I see true. I see the way that human beings are meant to live in. And I know plenty of people who agree. So I'm like, why don't we just start doing that? Because what I like to say as well is those who hate will soon emulate, because they're going to eventually see like, wow, they're actually like thriving human beings and they're moving forward with their evolution, and they have other people joining them and they all seem to be doing really well. And wow, they're a lot healthier. They don't get put on these pills. They don't do this. They don't do that. I want to try that lifestyle out. So for the people who do end up, saying, screw this, I don't want to follow these women, they're crazy, they may as well end up coming back a few months later or a year later and being like, what was that podcast that I was listening to?
And that's what I love. Like, they're going to start awakening and be like, hey, didn't I watch something about this? They're going to re-listen with new ears and be mind blown that they listened to the same podcast unawakened. Like when I woke up, I started listening to a bunch of different movies that I had listened to in the past. Let's say like the first thing that I wanted to listen to was National Treasure with what's his name?
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage. And I found so many truths in that movie. And I started looking at symbolism because my eyes were renewed, because I was awakened, and I was like, oh my God, like Avatar, all these movies, they have been guiding us and planting seeds for awakening, to awaken us. So even in music was new. All these messages were new. So yeah, I agree with you. Keep producing the way you produce and people will be thankful for that.
Yeah. And that's another thing with the music thing. I've not been able to listen to a lot of artists for the past like 5 years, because I'm just like, oh my God, that's programming. Like you can't listen to that. Don't listen to that. Or like the frequency of that song is literally meant to like keep you in fear state. Don't do that. Like, and it's so interesting to hear that. And like, I think I've seen that you love rap music. I love rap music too, but I like a certain genre of rap music now. I used to listen to like any rap music and just like the beat and sing along to what they're saying, but now I'm like, ooh, that's some dark shit. Like I can't listen to that. I can't allow the spread of this, at least in my own consciousness or the people like near me. You become more aware of that stuff, and it does sort of limit what you can listen to in like the same type of enjoyment. And when it comes to like movies and stuff too, I went and saw Tenet the other day. Have you heard of that movie?
No, what is that?
See, what's so amazing is that this incredible movie, Tenet, it comes out during 2020 in movie theaters when no one can go to the mother effing movie theater.
So it's really good. There's a lot of truths in it.
So many truths in it.
Oh, Christopher Nolan.
Yes. It's incredible. Like one of the best films that I've seen produced in like the past decade, to be completely honest. And for, some super random reason, my friend was like, oh my God, like, let's go to this movie theater. They only allow like a certain amount of people in. Like, I was like, oh, movie theaters are a thing during COVID. Okay, cool. Like, I'll go. And of course there's like 3 other people in the entire theater. And my friend is like, she's on her own awakening path. She is not necessarily like fully awoken to everything. She's like getting there. I can hear it. I can see it in like her eyes. I can hear it in the way she speaks. But I'm sitting there literally like bracing myself the whole movie. And I was like, oh my God. And she's
why? Why? Because of the truths, or
the truth, so much truth in it. And I was like, everyone on this planet needs to see this movie right now. And then realizing, it would come out now. It would come out when like it can't become a blockbuster, or not blockbuster, a box office hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can't become, so it's not necessarily even going to become a blockbuster hit. I don't even know if they're called blockbuster hits anymore.
I'm not sure. I think Blockbuster died out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so far removed from like movies and television too. That's been like a big part of like my journey in the past 5 years, is like, it is TV programming. Like they call it a TV program for a reason, because it is meant to program our minds. Now, I believe that it's also used for good, like you're saying, because over the years, there's so many movies that have been trying to guide us.
Exactly.
And they do it in such a way that it's like such a beautiful, like Hollywood created, like, oh my God, a maximized produced type of film, that no one would know that it's here to teach us how to evolve as human beings.
Yeah.
Unless they know, unless they're really awoken to it. But I just found it so fascinating that this film specifically came out, because I'm literally just like watching it. And I want to explain all the reasons and all the truths, but I also think that everyone needs to go and watch the movie themselves. But it basically like debunks the whole idea of time in its own way, and shows us like how we are the creators. And there's just so much beauty in it and so much truth in it that like your mind will be blown when you see this movie. I cannot wait to hear your feedback, because
I'm so excited. I'm going to watch it. And I think like you were saying, there's a lot of truths hidden in movies and music, but most specifically in fiction. There's also like a balance and a way that like the elites, even the nefarious ones, but there are elites that are doing good for us too. There are like universal laws where they have to tell us the truth. So how do they tell us the dark truth? They cover it with fiction. So cartoons, we always see those predictive programming cartoons, but also like fiction, any Marvel movie, anything like that you can think of. I remember when I first awakened, Spider-Man came into my mind, like I channeled that. I was like, oh my God, Spider-Man, and how it's like fighting darkness and with the power of love. And oh my God, even in Disney's main thing, I know there's a lot of nefarious things going on with Disney, but I realized Disney's biggest truth is that you can fight any darkness with love. And love's true love's kiss, or whatever. It's not the kiss, it's love. Love conquers all. And I love how that's Disney's main message. So yeah, and another thing I wanted to say was, I think it all comes down to intention when you're talking about like music and stuff. I do listen to rap, but I would never put rap on to chill in my living room and just like, well, maybe I would, depending on like the album or whatever. But oftentimes I use rap to push myself, push my physical limits, and work really hard. And I don't know if it's like the vibration of the music that like triggers something in your brain that makes you really angry, but it helps push your body and get fit. Literally, it helps you get that rage out. It helps you lift weights. I'm not going to listen to like beautiful DNA healing music when I'm trying to like go for, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like, using everything with intention, but being aware that the music that you are listening to could have subconscious programming in it. So using it when you're intending on shutting your mind off and working your body out really hard. So
that's a beautiful way of looking at it as well. And I mean, look, a lot of this like conscious rap now still even has that like energy to it, for sure. And trust me, I fall quote unquote victim, but like it's just an easy way of using words. I fall victim to the like super catchy, like dirty ass rap. Like I'm into it. I get really into it. But it's a realization of like, I don't even want to blast it like in my car like I used to when I was 18 years old, because I wanted like, truthfully wanted to seem cool. Like I wanted someone to drive past me and be like, oh, look how cool she is. And I'm like, I'm so cool with my gangster rap. Like, because I could be affecting someone's consciousness who's walking down the street if they're hearing like curse words and all this stuff. And trust me, I've cursed a bunch of times in this episode already, but like to blast that out there, that frequency can get really dangerous, I think. I do love festivals, but I kind of want to create an actual transformational festival that that doesn't attract that much demonic energy and isn't kind of driven by that demonic energy, because I'm tired of going to festivals and seeing 15-year-olds on 12 different psychedelics at once, and like literally like you're burning holes through your aura. You're making it so that you are so susceptible to these evil entities and these energies. And I work for a company that's called Thank You Plant Medicine. It's one of the many hats that I wear. And we're trying to destigmatize the use of plant medicine in transformation, in therapy, and in spirituality. And it's almost impossible to do so when it's still being doled out and like allowed for like children to do it without any education around it. I think that they can be really beautiful, transformational parts of your healing. Like I said, ketamine saved my life, but ketamine wouldn't save my life if I was just taking the powder out of a bag and sniffing it at a festival. I had to go intravenously to a doctor and have it like professionally put into my system for it to be something that changed my life. And I've definitely experienced a lot of spiritual experiences just in ingesting these psychedelics on my own and in situations that were not professional and by doctors, but with education and understanding and intention for spiritual and like consciousness up leveling experiences.
Because all drugs are to be respected. The minute that you don't respect a drug, it doesn't respect you, and you can lose your life to it. So just wanted to say that. Do you smoke weed?
I actually gave up weed for the second time in my life. I just gave up weed 41 days ago. So I'm like 41 days completely sober of all mind altering substances right now.
Okay, nice. And why? I'm just curious.
Because I wasn't respecting weed anymore. Yeah. And as a person who's a representative for Thank You Plant Medicine, I found it really, not even just that, but that's one of it. I found it really necessary to be respecting the spirit of marijuana, as well as the fact that I was coming to a point where I was smoking like almost an ounce every like 5 days to myself. And that is a lot of marijuana.
Yeah.
And it's not necessary to be used at that level. But like I would use excuses like, well, Shiva used to smoke weed to be a coolant for all of the energies that Shiva was dealing with. And like I deal with a lot of energies myself as an energy worker and a light worker. So there you go. That's why I did it. And it's like, no more excuses like that. I don't need it like that. And if I were to ever return to it, I would have to find a way to do it respectfully again. And I've worked with all of the master plants. I've done ayahuasca, ibogaine. I have not done ibogaine. I don't want to lie. Bufo and combo and washuma. And I've worked with like some of the best shamans around the world with these master plants. And I love it, but I've already had the experiences and I'm not sure I need to ever have them again.
What about salvia?
Salvia, I had an experience when I was like 16. I smoked it with my sister and I actually hated it myself. But
yeah, I tried it one time. It was the worst experience of my entire life.
Yeah,
and it lasted like 5 minutes and it was the worst.
I felt like I got put into a glass case around my head. That was my experience. I literally thought that I was like stuck in a glass case. Like it was actually hysterical because I was on my bed smoking it. My sister was on the floor. We both took hits of it in the bowl. And my dad came like right then and there to say like dinner's ready by opening the door. And I'm laying on my bed, like trying to get a glass box that doesn't exist off of my head. And he's like, oh my God, what is happening in here? What did you guys smoke? And like, we had to go to dinner like 15 minutes later and be like, we just tried this like legal weed stuff. It's awful. Like, sorry, Dad. But yeah, how about you? Do you work with plant medicines or psychedelics ever?
I've never tried anything like acid or anything. I've not even tried mushrooms, never tried ayahuasca or anything like that. I think I would literally lose my mind if I tried that, because I feel like the more tapped in you are, just like we were saying, like I'm a very easy channel, meaning like if I tap in, a lot of things will come to me. So it can be overwhelming, especially with plant medicine, it can be uncontrollable. So even if I take a little bit of weed, I'll open that portal and sometimes I won't be able to control what comes to me and it'll be like, okay, please stop. So I like being like sober most of the time so that I can tap into that during meditation, controlling it. But my whole life I smoked weed. So like from 15 to I think I stopped in university. because I was high right in the front row, and my university teacher asked me a question in the middle of class and I wasn't able to answer it. And I was like, okay, never again. I'm smoking weed, never again. So for 3 years in university, I stopped. And then after that, I picked it up again. And now I respect it. So like maybe I'll smoke once every 3 months, but it'll be like a nice little thing. Or let's say I'll go 1 week smoking weed, but then I know it's not an addiction and I can just stop for 6 months. You know what I mean? So I respect it in that way. But it was addiction. It was an addiction for a really long time. When I had my spiritual awakening a year and a half ago, I completely stopped because I was in fear. And if you're in fear, marijuana brings out your shadow like crazy.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's where the people who have like paranoid experiences
oh
and all
yeah,
that come from. For me, like it was just a chemical balance my body got used to. So like the more I smoked, it wasn't even getting me higher. It was just like
exactly.
keeping me in this like the same thing that my body was used to. And it was definitely addiction is definitely like, I mean, I think at this point, you know, the fact that I've broken that addiction and I'm not smoking is like beautiful, but
Yes,
I don't want to go back to it quite yet. And I'm not sure if I ever really need to. I don't think it's
exactly.
necessary, you know, like I've had that experience. I know what it's like to be high. I know what it's like to, you know, have psychedelic experiences, to go on ayahuasca
How
journey.
was your ayahuasca? How was that?
She is really beautiful, motherly plant who will kick your ass if that's what you need. But I've always had really, really calm experiences with her as compared to what you could potentially have on ayahuasca. I mean,
Yeah.
I say that just because like I don't want my experience to be what someone expects and then they go and have an ayahuasca trip that like literally blows them out of the water.
Yeah.
So I you know, sat with ayahuasca in Peru and in Thailand, and each time I've ever sat with her, you know, I have the purging experience, but it's also turns into me like chanting with the shamans and like drumming, and like I literally just become my soul, my spirit, that essence that has already experienced this in other lifetimes, that not necessarily even experienced the ayahuasca, but has experienced the music,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. And I just can tap into people even more so than when I'm like normally very sensitive, but like I was experiencing other people's experiences on the ayahuasca. Like one person was sat next to me at one point and I knew that she was going to come out of it and break up with her boyfriend.
Mm.
And like all she was doing was weeping. And I was like, this is because she has to let go of her man. My teacher was like across the way from me and I could like literally see her expelling demons in her vomit. And when I talked to her later, I was like, looked really dark what you were purging. Like, and she was like, you could see that. And I was like, yeah, like
Yeah.
super interesting. But for me personally, like what was happening for me was just this sense of just being and just allowing everything to come and to flow. And like, yes, we are always just being, but like it was more so than like being in flow state. It was just like, I am one with everything and it is fine. Like everything that comes up is fine. And then it was like the drumming was just like natural for me. And then if I needed to rest or meditate, I would rest and meditate. If I needed to sing, I would sing.
Yeah.
You know, it was like really just like everything was just like coming through me rather than me even like having to like operate anything of my body to make it happen, you know, which
Like
is
you were in a state of already being healed. So you were able to appreciate that plant without looking at any underlying, shadows.
exactly. It
That's
was
really
super
cool.
beautiful. Yeah. And I definitely think that one of my biggest recommendations, if you feel called to an ayahuasca experience, that's beautiful. Don't ever go and seek out an ayahuasca experience if you're not actually being called, just because you hear that like the common saying of like 12 years of therapy in one night. Like,
Yeah.
come on now, guys. Like, just because you hear that doesn't mean it's your experience, you know? So it's just definitely something these spirits are going to call to you if you're meant to have that experience in this lifetime. And that's what I got for that.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, we want to wrap things up because I do have to head out soon. And this has been a beautiful talk. I so enjoy it. But if there's just one thing that you could say to the audience, leave them with a little essence of aura. Let us know also where we can find you if you have a website, all of those things. And I'll put your links in the episode description as well.
Okay. So if there's anything that I feel like people need to know or hear right now, it would be that you are worthy. You are worthy without your accomplishments. You are worthy without um, doing anything. If you need rest, rest. Oh my gosh, don't reach burnout. Don't get to a point where your body is forcing you to rest. Don't get to a point where you are a victim of your circumstances. Listen, and you can hear where you're being guided to. You can hear if you're being guided to do a certain podcast. Honor what you are being guided to do. And rest, 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 because we're not always here to be like workaholics and work, work, work. We're here to just breathe. And yeah, we're going to shine more when we're respecting our own limits. So respect your limits. Yeah. And you can find me at Aura Vibin. TikTok is like where you see my vibe. Instagram, it's harder to like show your vibe. It's just pictures. So you could go on Instagram, Aura Vibin. And and I'm starting I just started a spiritual YouTube channel, so you guys can check that out. It's called Angelic Aura. So I have one video on there. I'm posting my second one all about chakras and signs that your chakras are blocked. So Aura Vibin everywhere. And if you guys want to be a part of my Discord community, oh my gosh, I'm opening this up to the public soon, but we have like a private Discord where we're going to meet on Zoom bi-weekly. So you can check that out, Aura Vibin Patreon, become a light member and be part of the Discord community. So yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much, Aura. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. And I hope we can do this again soon.
Yes,
Yay.
absolutely. Okay.